Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Girivaradari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhava Shri Shri Radha Damodar Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramhamsa Brihadrakacharya Stotra Sata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramhamsa Brihadrakacharya Stotra Sata Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanandi Haribo. Om Vishnupada Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimad Bhagavatam Swami Vishnupada Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pachayane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyaresha Tarine Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the King of Books, the Grantaraj, Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 26, which is entitled Paranjana goes to the forest to hunt and his queen becomes angry. Text number 21, if I understand correctly. Paranjana uvacha Nunam tvakrita punyaste Britya yeshvishvaraha shubhe Kritagas masat kritva Shiksha dhandam nayunjate Nunam tvakrita punyaste Britya yeshvishvaraha shubhe Kritagas masat kritva Shiksha dhandam nayunjate Nunam tvakrita punyaste Britya yeshvishvara shubhe Krita gasvatmasat kritva Shiksha dhandam nayunjate. Word for word translation here. Paranjana uvacha. Paranjana said, Nunam, certainly. To then, akrita punyaha, those who are not pious, Te such Britya servants, Yeshu unto whom Ishvaraha, the masters, Shubhe, O most auspicious one, Krita Aghasu, having committed an offense. Aghasu, like the Aghasura. Agha means sin. Aghasura means the sin demon. Aptly named. Atmasat, accepting as their own. Kritva, doing so. Shiksha, instructive. Dandam, punishment. Nayunjate, do not give. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. King Puranjana said, "My dear, beautiful wife, when a master accepts a servant as his own man, but does not punish him for his offenses, the servant must be considered unfortunate." Okay, you ready for the plot twist of the century? Purport: according to Vedic civilization, domestic animals and servants are treated exactly like one's own children. Animals and children are sometimes punished, not out of vengeance, but out of love. Similarly, a master sometimes punishes his servant, not out of vengeance, but out of love, to correct him and bring him to the right point. Thus, King Puranjana took his punishment dealt by his wife, the queen, as mercy upon him. So he's thinking, I'm the servant and you are the master. He considered himself the most obedient servant of the queen. She was angry at him for his sinful activities, namely hunting in the forest and leaving her at home. King Puranjana accepted the punishment as actual love and affection from his wife. In the same way, when a person is punished by the laws of nature, by the will of God, he should not be disturbed. A real devotee thinks in this way. When a devotee is put into an awkward position, he takes it as the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Tatenukampam susamikshamano bunjana evatma kritam vipakam hridvagva purbir vidadan namaste jivetayo mukti pade sadhaya bhak. This verse states that the devotee accepts a reversal of his position in life as a benediction by the Lord and consequently offers the Lord more obeisances and prayers, thinking that the punishment is due to his past misdeeds and that the Lord is punishing him very mildly. The punishment awarded by the state or by God for one's own faults is actually for one's benefit. In the Manu Samhita, it is said that the king should be considered merciful when he condemns a murderer to death, because a murderer punished in this life becomes freed from his sinful activity and in the next life takes birth cleared of all sins. If one accepts punishment as a reward dealt by the master, he becomes intelligent enough not to commit the same mistake again. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Grave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaham Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So let me first express my gratitude to this divine and effulgent lotus feet of our Yugacharya, Param Guru, our spiritual master, indeed the spiritual master of the whole world, Jagat Guru, Srila Prabhupada, who took the time to translate the Srimad Bhagavatam and give us insight which is relevant to us on so many different levels. Prabhupada, when he writes his purports, it's like he's playing the piano. He hits all the high notes, the ecstasy of love of God. He hits all the low notes, the degraded position of the material world, and he just blends them together into a symphony of spiritual awakening. And I don't think anybody else could really do it. Well, nobody else did do it. Prabhupada did it. So we are all eternally indebted to Srila Prabhupada. So I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. In his purport here, Prabhupada flips the script. He's talking about master and servant, and then shows how Paranjan is thinking, I am the servant of my wife. Of course, it is allegorical, this whole story, but and still very close to home. That we see our loved ones as a master, we should, and feel that if they are displeased with us and punish us in some way, that is actually a blessing. It's actually a blessing. It reveals the sensitivity of the person. Someone who has some authority and some responsibility over another person tries to take care of them as they can. And if they express their displeasure with that person, it actually shows their sensitivity, their need for love in a particular way. Parents have to do this with their children all the time. Children are unruly. They require some discipline. And the parent does well to point out to the child that this is what I expect from you. And the kids learn, oh, I have to be sensitive to others. I have to be considerate of the feelings of other people, and that this punishment helps me to understand that. It takes them a few years, but eventually kids learn. And if children do not receive punishment from their parents, if they're never disciplined with love and with affection, then they turn into monsters. You can take a moment to think about what little kids fall into that category. But how are we any different as children of God? How are we any different? We think, I know better. I don't need punishment. I do not need to suffer at the hands of God. I've got it all figured out. There's no more lessons for me to learn. And therefore we become frustrated when we are put in an awkward position in this material world. We might even blame the Lord. But here Prabhupada is saying that Paranjana accepted the punishment as actual love and affection from his wife. In the same way, when a person is punished by the laws of nature, by the will of God, he should not be disturbed. A real devotee thinks in this way. When a devotee is put into an awkward position, he takes it as the mercy of the Supreme Lord. This is such a valuable lesson for us to learn. We can get this, it'll be smooth sailing till the end of our material sojourn. But it's not smooth sailing because we still feel like I don't deserve to suffer. I don't deserve to be punished by the laws of nature, by the will of God. I don't have any other lessons to learn here. I've got it all sorted out. And so any other punishment that I experience thus far is unjust. This is just like a little child, telling the parent, no, mother, father, I do not need to eat my vegetables. I've given it due consideration. I'm certain that from now on, there's only sugar for me. We're like that same child. Everyone is in an awkward position in this material world. Everyone is so awkward. We're all like some, teenager going through puberty. It's just always awkward. Everything is just out of line. Everything is just weird. Nothing makes sense. We're all in an awkward position in this material world. We're all suffering. But only persons who are Krishna conscious, only persons who have the knowledge of Krishna consciousness actually benefit from the suffering. For everybody else, it's a waste. They suffer, and it brings out worse qualities, and they glide down towards lower species of life. Only people who have knowledge learn from the suffering. Which Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, I'm sure. It's in chapter 4 about Yata Agni, about how the fire of knowledge burns up the results of one's sinful activities. Yatai Vamso Smidagnir. It's there, trust me. I just can't remember it right now. But he says that this transcendental knowledge is like a fire that burns up all of one's sinful activities. Those who don't have knowledge, they suffer, but it's mostly futile. They're not learning anything. It's just bringing out worse qualities in them if they're in the human form of life. And then they'll probably go downwards towards lower species. But those of us who have even a glint of Krishna consciousness and have even fundamental, rudimentary knowledge of bhakti, for them, the suffering, the awkwardness of this material world is actually an impetus for growth in Krishna consciousness. The devotee sees it as the mercy of the Supreme Lord. That's what we want to try to do. So everybody's suffering, but not everyone benefits from that suffering. Let us benefit. Let's benefit. Like Queen Kunti and her sons. What greater story of punishment exists? Or I shouldn't say punishment. What greater story of suffering in this material world exists than Kunti and the Pandavas? It just seems like, despite their exclusive devotion to Lord Krishna, at every single moment, there's some problem all the time. So much so that even King Yudhishthira was lamenting to Narada Muni that we've done a great disservice to the devotees, because people will think that being a devotee means you suffer all the time like us. King Yudhishthira actually felt like this. Our life is just filled with so much difficulty and suffering that people will think this is what it means to be a devotee of Krishna. We've actually done a disservice to the devotees, to Krishna. This is his lamentation. There are always, just always something going on. And that's why Queen Kunti's prayer is so significant. What she says as a result of all the suffering is so significant. You all know this famous verse. We should contemplate it daily. She says, Vipada santuta shasvat tatra tatra jagadguru bhavato darshanam yatsyat apunar bhavadarshanam. She said, I wish that all that stuff would happen again. What happened? The suicide, the assassination attempts, the politics, the wars, the fighting, it's just the abuse. She said, I wish all of it would happen again. I wish that we would see those calamities again, because seeing those calamities means we also see your lotus feet, and seeing your lotus feet means we're done with material existence. Bhavato darshanam yatsad apunar bhavadarshanam. We'll never again see this material world. So this is her perspective, that actually the awkwardness of this material world, the punishment by the laws of material nature and by the will of God, is really for our benefit. We got to get that same understanding at some point, and then it'll be smooth sailing. If we're like this petulant child who thinks they know better than their own parents, then there's always going to be this thing going on between you and Krishna. Why did this happen to me? I don't deserve this. Yeah, well, maybe you do. Maybe you do. There's always a lesson to be learned. That doesn't mean that everyone should suffer needlessly, unnecessarily, and that any sort of suffering is the will of God. There are bad actors in this world, and they cause abuse, and the Lord does not arrange for that. But the Lord arranges that everyone gets their karma. He set up this material nature so that you will get what you deserve. He doesn't personally make it so that someone who is abused at the hands of some, evil person will get that. He doesn't like personally arrange for that to happen, but he set up this material nature so that we living entities can interact with it and learn our lesson. And we must learn. If we do not have the perspective of many lifetimes of education and reformation, then we can be very confused. Why do I have to suffer? Why do I suffer in this world? Why does God allow bad things to happen to me, a good person? This is like the perspective of this child who's thinking, why does Father make me eat vegetables? Why do I deserve to suffer like this? Why do I have a bedtime? Why is there restriction? I don't deserve this. The child's perspective is so limited. They can only think for like 20 seconds at a time. They can't think beyond 20 seconds. This is the scope of their understanding. So are we much different from that child? We're thinking, only in the matter of days or at most one lifetime. But actually our reformation goes over the course of many lifetimes. Everyone suffers, not everyone benefits from that suffering. If we have a glint of Krishna consciousness and the knowledge of Krishna consciousness, then we will actually benefit. And we might even desire more of those lessons, like Queen Kunti. So, life is hard, get used to it. But what's being described here, what's being described in this verse and purport, is that there's a sort of active lamentation that we should subscribe to. Prabhupada says in the purport here, this verse states that a devotee accepts a reversal of his position in life as a benediction by the Lord and consequently offers the Lord more obeisances and prayers, thinking that the punishment is due to his past misdeeds and that the Lord is punishing him very mildly. This is the attitude that we should have as a devotee. I call it active lamentation. Active lamentation. For most people, lamentation just knocks the wind out of them and they do less, right? If some catastrophe has befallen, to use biblical language, sometimes there's a catastrophe, something really bad happens, and it just knocks the wind out of us. It can kill your motivation, your enthusiasm, and then we just become absorbed in our own little world. We crawl down into that pit of despair. And for some people, they never come out again. And some people might have clinical depression, anxiety and worse. As we know, there's no shortage of mental health conditions nowadays. It seems to be like an infectious disease that spreads around. So for most people, lamentation is like falling into that pit of despair, and they just lie down there and quit. The devotee should subscribe to an active lamentation, as described by Prabhupada here. There's a reversal of his position in life. That's Prabhupada's nice way of saying you just get knocked off your feet. But we see it as a benediction and therefore offer more to Krishna. That's active lamentation. That's the example set by, we're referring to all the empowered women today, Queen Kunti and Rukmini Devi. The example set by Rukmini Devi is active lamentation. When there is a reversal in life, when there's a problem, you do even more. Take a moment to recall how the fair princess Rukmini Devi was arranged to be wed to Shishupal by her brother and by her father. There's some business agreement going on there. It's kind of the price to pay when you're in the royal family. And she was not very happy about this. For a lot of us, we would consider that to be one of the worst things in life, really. If someone just kind of made a huge decision for you. I mean, that's the sort of decision, especially in that time and age, which determine the rest of your whole life. If something happens to us like that, one of those events which just dictates the course of your life forever, we would become very disturbed by it, to say the least. You'd be very disturbed. But what did Rukmini Devi do? Did she just sit there and just, well, I guess I'll just be miserable for the rest of my life. Let me just become self-absorbed. Let me just desperately grasp onto whatever little sense gratification I can get from here on out. After all, I deserve it because I've gone through some suffering, as if like suffering, somehow earns you the right to be even more selfish. I don't know, this is the thinking of materialistic persons. Rukmini Devi, she subscribed to this philosophy of active lamentation. So instead of just taking it, instead of just being miserable, she did something about it. She reached out to Krishna even more. She sent a letter through the agency of this Brahmana, and she actually made arrangements. She made all sorts of arrangements. She was very clear and precise in her plan. How am I going to get more Krishna consciousness? She made a very precise plan. She wrote it out to Krishna, please come and kidnap me. And if you don't, I'm going to kill myself. And if in the next life you don't come and take me as your wife, I'll kill myself in that life too. Basically, I see that there's no purpose of my life except to be wed to you. And if this body is not suitable for your service, then I'll give up this body and any other body until I am suitable. I mean, that's determination. Of course, we don't glorify suicide in any way, but she expressed a pretty clear conviction that if the problem is that I have this body and it's not good enough for you, I'll give up this body and the next one and the next one until you will take me as your own. I mean, that's determination. That is active lamentation. It's like, I'm ready to do something. Of course, realistically, what was actually done, she did not have to commit sati. In any way, what she did is that she made arrangements to get closer to Krishna. She sent this letter through the Brahmana, outlining a very clear plan, saying, please come and kidnap me. Don't even worry about the family members. I know you don't want to come and ruin my wedding day by killing some family members. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take this trip to visiting the temple of Durga, as is the tradition. And in that particular period, I won't be as well guarded. You can come and get me right here, come from the left side. We'll flank right. We'll go like this. We'll go like that. She had it all worked out, How am I going to be closer to Krishna despite this calamity, despite this catastrophe? That's the sort of attitude that we should approach Krishna consciousness with. We all get knocked off our feet sometimes. We all get hit with news which is depressing or frustrating, aggravating, and we can take one of two routes. One is to become self-absorbed, to think that this suffering somehow earns me the right to be even more selfish and vain. That's the route chosen by most people. Or we can follow the example of Rukmini Devi, be an active lamenter. I've been hit by this catastrophe. I've been knocked down, but I'm going to get up again and do more for Krishna. Prabhupada says that explicitly in this purport. Consequently, the devotee offers more to the Lord, thinking that the punishment is due to his past misdeeds and that the Lord is punishing very mildly. And we think, let me do more. That's the great standard that we should aspire for. That's the standard set by these great devotees. And set by our Srila Prabhupada. I mean, how many obstacles did Srila Prabhupada face in his mission to make Krishna consciousness well known all over the world? It wasn't just like, smooth sailing. There were all sorts of issues. It's just nonstop problems. But what did he do each time? He just got up and tried again. Made it the impetus to try even harder, to do more for Krishna. So let's try to apply the standard of devotion. Tatena kampam susamikshmano bunjana evatmakritam vipakam hridvagvapurvir vidadan namaste jivetayo muktipade sadaiva. Prabhupada explicitly said this should be the motto of every devotee in ISKCON. Isn't that right, Taraka Prabhu? This is the verse where he said this should be the motto of every devotee in ISKCON. This verse from 10th canto is one of the prayers of Brahma. He says, "My dear Lord, one who earnestly waits for you to bestow your causeless mercy upon him, all the while patiently suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds and offering you respectful obeisances with his heart, words, and body." That means actively lamenting. I'm doing something, not just up in my head, just, oh, why did Krishna do this to me? Why? But doing something, Hridvag Vapurabhir Vidadan Namaste, like offering my body, my words, and my heart to Krishna, doing something. For that person, liberation is their rightful claim. Devotion is their rightful claim. So let's make that our motto. Make that your motto. Put that, write that down. Put it in your, your dream journal or your vision board, or however you just keep focus on what's most important in life. Wherever you put down that sort of information, make that your motto. Make this our standard. Active lamentation. When you get knocked down, you get up even stronger for Krishna, just like Rukmini Devi did, just like Srila Prabhupada did. Prabhupada says this is the standard of devotion. All right. So these are some of my thoughts on this verse and purport. I could ramble on so much more, of course, but I'd love to hear if any of the devotees have some thoughts about this, or even some questions if you're feeling frisky. Hare Krishna.
I'll say this, just one quick brief comment, which is neither here nor there, but there's about almost 300 different instances of Srila Prabhupada saying this or that should be our motto. And
I only know of this one.
They were all different.
Okay. I had only heard that this one was the motto, but I'll have to look up the other ones. It's okay if we have many mottos. It doesn't have to be exclusive. Thank you, Prabhu. All right. Hare Krishna. If there are no other thoughts or comments, we'll just go back home, back to Godhead. All right, then. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi. Hare Hare Bo.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.